Hi guys, so today I'm going to be doing a book problems video, which I'll be talking about different types of books and what should be fixed in them to make it better, and just problems that I have with books in general. I absolutely adore books, so it's hard for me to find actual problems with them, but certain books really just scream at you like, this sucks, and I hate that, and I just like to get it out of the way. I've wanted to do this for a while now, so here we go. So book problem number 1, summaries. We have all wanted to get a book that is very good from the sound of the actual summary, but when we actually start reading it, it turns out to be a total suckish book. Or it's super vague and you don't get an understanding of what the book actually is about. So we've all read a book that has a summary that has nothing to do with the actual book itself. Or it's super vague and you don't get an understanding of what the book actually is about. For example, I love this book series to death. It's my favorite book series ever of all time, and it's the Mortal Instruments series, and it's by Cassandra Clare. I just picked up City of Bones. I was sort of confused as to what's happening because when I read the summary, I thought the people, like the Shadow Hunters, were invisible to everybody else except Clary, which they are, but I didn't notice that they were invisible because of their runes. So I was like, so these are invisible people. So when I actually read the book, I got an understanding of what this is, and then it went perfect, and it was an amazing book. And it's not really a problem, it's just a little bit of a vague understanding of what's happening, and it could get confusing to some people. I don't know if I'm the only one who was sort of confused as to what is happening with these invisible people. But then once you read the book, you notice that they're shadow hunters and their runes make them invisible for a certain amount of time so they can do hunting stuff without being seen by the mundanes. So that's an example of a really good book series that has a sort of vague understanding of what is going on in the summary. But once you read the books, you understand what's going on. So once I read about the runes and I found out that they're not invisible all the time, that sort of got me to understand the concept of what's happening in this book. And that was very early on in the book, so you weren't going through the whole entire book not knowing what's going on. And I really like how Cassandra did that. But then there are all those books that sound excellent in the summary, and then all of a sudden, you read the book, and it's about this annoying girl, and you really don't like her because in the summary, she sounds like a great heroine. Then she really isn't, and she's just the damsel in distress the whole entire book, and those are the ones that you just you just don't like because you just bought a book, or you went to the library and wasted gas or whatnot, on a book that isn't even worth the read. There was a book, I didn't really finish it, but I forgot the name, but it was very bad like that, and I didn't like it. I didn't really, I didn't enjoy it, and it was just a waste of my time I'm reading, so I could have read a different book in that time. So I really wish that sometimes the summaries could be a little bit more descriptive and less vague. That's why I now buy some of a sample book on iBooks or on my Nook, so I can read the first chapter and make sure I like it. So, problem solved. Book problem number 2. Annoying characters in the book. Oh my god, I can't express my feelings about how I hate annoying characters, especially if they're the main characters. You know what? Usually I don't get annoyed by the male lead characters in the book because they're usually very well written and well based. But the female characters, they just annoy me sometimes so much. Not as much as they would usually if you just buy books randomly. But since I do my research into the books before I read them nowadays, I can actually find out who's a good character and if I actually want to read this book. But before those days, I used to buy books without reading the first chapter, and boy did I get a surprise about the main characters. Okay, so I read this one book. Well, I wouldn't say read it because the main character just annoyed me very much in the first chapter that I didn't even want to read it. And that was Fated. I'm not going to take the books down just in case you guys want to read them. But it's called Fated, and honestly, she annoyed the living hell out of me. While describing a character while you're an author, you have to sort of ease into how they look. You can't just lay it out on the table and tell them how beautiful or ugly or handsome he is or she is. It's you can't do that because then they'll just sort of take away from who the person is on the inside. But in Fated, nope, they didn't. You can tell the author didn't really mind that. In the beginning of the book, she's describing how she looked, and she's like, oh, well, I'm pretty-ish, I have long hair-ish, I'm beautiful-ish. Why do you say ish at the end if you're not that? Seriously, it just annoyed me so much, I couldn't even read the rest. Usually, I have this rule, and I always abide by this rule. First, read 100 pages of the book before you put it down. this book just pushed my buttons so much, and it just annoyed me, and I just was like, screw that rule, I'm breaking it. And it was sort of just all jumbled up the first bit because she was like saying how her mom is a hairdresser or like a hair makeup artist for famous people during movies, and how she has this totally cool life, and she has all the cool clothing and all the hot guys and actors. And this book is supposed to be about this girl finding out who she is as a person and discovering these powers that she has. And honestly, I did not get that vibe. It was so jumbled up. Like sometimes books can be so confusing at the beginning and just jumbled. Like there's so much information in the first few chapters that you just cannot read. And you do not get a sense of what this book is about, and you're not drawn in from the first chapter. And this is what that book did to me, and it really just turned me off of it. And I'm like, can I return books from Barnes & Noble? Is that possible? Please let it be. You know what? I understand if there's an annoying character in the book, and she's supposed to be annoying, like the mean girl or this crazy girl. But honestly, the main character really has to be somebody you look up to, somebody who you want to be, and somebody who you like really enjoy reading about. And sometimes it's just not that good, and it's not well written. But some people enjoy that, and I go all for it. I'm all for it if you like that kind of stuff. But me personally, I don't necessarily like that. I like strong main heroines like Candace Everdeen, Clary Frey, Tessa Gray, all these other ones that I'm forgetting to name. And then there are the guys who are they're usually well-based because you want to have this guy as your fictional boyfriend, and some authors do a great job in writing them. Others sort of are frustrated towards it because usually if they're a girl author, it's a little bit more difficult, like in my point of view, like I find it hard to write a guy character. But some people find it easier, but it's hard to write a guy character if you're a girl sometimes, and you have to get sort of like a point of view from the guy. So, you know what, I understand if it's a little bit harder to write a main character that's a boy, but if you do, the book's probably really good because you would have like a great imagination to do that, and I very much applaud you for that. But usually guy main characters aren't the problem. But sometimes they are, but eh. Book problem numero 3, and that is the climax, or books that have none. You know what? There's a good book called Significance by Shelley Crane, and she's a very good writer. But when I actually read her books, it was a very much a love romance book, but with like a supernatural element to it. The supernatural element, in a way, is that the people, they had powers that they like sort of share with their mate or partner or whatever. And their mate is sort of chosen by a greater force. We're not sure what it was, but when you actually find that person, you instantly like cannot be away from them. You love them so much, and like you share the same type of power. Like it sort of helps you, like your power helps them, and vice versa. But in this book, like I expected them to break up maybe, or something happens. Yes, there's like a climax where the girl, she gets taken away by this other opposing family and whatnot. But honestly, the like romance in this whole entire book was solid straight through. I've never read a book that's a romance is solid straight through because that's unrealistic. That because it's a main part of the book. But couldn't there be a little bit of like a problem, because they literally feel sick when they're like away from each other for more than a day. Like that's so unrealistic, but then again that's the plot of the book. But then again, it's a little just odd. This book is sort of my go-to book when I'm really just sad after reading a book, or like I'm in emotional distress after reading a character's death, because this book's just really happy with their romance. And I'm like, okay, happy romance, here we come, because there's nothing going to be bad in it, because I already know that. So if I'm like feeling sad about a character's romance, Malik, I'm still denying that, I'll read this book, and you know what? It is nice to read as a sort of side book between books. If you're waiting for a book to come out on, like, let's say Tuesday, you have a day, you could read this book really fast. So it does have its perks. Book problem number 4. Really descriptive long books. Books do this quite often, but sometimes it's not as bad as it would be if the book is actually 800 pages long. It's a little bit over exaggerative, but like 600 to 800 pages long. Somebody explained to me why it takes an author a whole entire chapter to describe a cherry tree, or a park, or a knife. because I honestly do not know. Let's take Santa Clara for example. I use her a lot because I've reread her series a countless number of times, so. She really describes her books very, to the point, very exact, but you still get the picture of what's happening, where you are. Like, for Idris, she described it so well. She only took, a page to describe, the whole entire Idris and what it's like, and you really got a picture in your mind. She uses very exact, to the point words, but also to paint a picture that's really exact and there. But then there are the authors who take about a chapter or two to describe the longest thing that is the littlest point in the book. It really annoys me. For example, Beautiful Creatures. I'm sorry if you like that book. I didn't really enjoy it because, first of all, you know what? Guy points of views, it's very interesting to see the point of view, and Ethan was a great character. I really liked him. But then Margaret Stoll and the other woman who wrote that book, they took a while to describe the littlest things. They described each and every day throughout the whole entire, half year or wherever it took place. And honestly, I don't need to know how Emma makes cornbread muffins. I have a cookbook, and it's just you know what, you don't need to know every single little detail of the book to understand what's going on. You paint the picture for yourself, and it's really hard when you read a book like that. And it was 600 something pages long, and it's okay if it's 600 pages long, but it's an interesting book. But this one was just so dragging, and I just found it hard to read. And then another long book was The Host, and it was 800 pages long, my copy, beside this minier book, travel-sized. I like those. But you know what, that was a really good book. I found myself really wanting to read it, and yes, it takes a while for her to describe certain things, but that's important, because it takes place in this society, this caves, and they describe alien civilizations, and that's really difficult to describe in a page, so she takes a little bit longer for that, but it's still really interesting. So that's kind of the difference between a really long book that takes a while to describe the little things, and then another really long book that takes a while to describe little things, but it's important that they describe them for that long. Same difference. And last but not least, book problem number 5. Book covers. Dear young adult genre, why do your book covers sometimes have no relation to the actual book? Sincerely, Sasha. Please, somebody, anybody, please, tell me why they do this. Why are the book covers so unnecessarily awkward as to the plotline of the book? I cannot express how much I don't like some young adult book covers. Usually the really good books are hidden behind really bad, cheesy covers. Some are really good covers. And then there are some bad covers. I'm going to be nice and not show any of the bad covers, but I think you all know what I'm getting at and what books would be considered bad covers. The ones where the girls are wearing the long dresses and are posing so dramatically and staring into the camera and have crazy, weird face makeup on, and it has no plotline to the book because the book is about zombie slaying ninja princesses. I would like to see you in a badass outfit with a ninja sword, with a zombie coming at you from the back, and you're posing creepily, crazily, and you're not even looking at the camera. You're so engrossed in the killing the zombie that's coming at you. I know that the authors of the young adult genre and any genre really cannot pick their book covers, and they don't really have a say into what goes on the cover of the book. They have some little say, but they don't get the final decision as to everything that's on the book. Dear authors, I'm sorry that some of your book covers are really bad and that I judge them and that I don't really get to read your summary. I try not to do that, but it just happens. It's a habit. So yeah, guys, thank you for watching my 5 book problems. I'll probably do this later on again if I find more book problems, but I don't really have that many problems with books. I love them. They're my best friends. Ooh, that would make me sound like a loner. Half of that's true. So tell me in the comments below what your book problems are and what's your really big pet peeve about books. And I hope it's not reading them. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you soon. So a couple of you guys requested that I show you my bookshelf. I'll do a bookshelf tour later on, but right now I'll just show you my bookshelf, so stay tuned in a second. Pretty. I'll do a bookshelf tour later on. Yeah. Bye!